What is up, the Proactive Accountants community? Thank you so much for being with us. And I want to give a special thank you to David, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment, for being a part of our wonderful audience, as well as a contributor from not only the fact he has an incredible software company, but he's willing to impart some knowledge on our group today. And I'm really excited to dive into that. Just a quick update on what's going on inside of the Proactive Accountants community. We want to continue to do these Wednesday wisdom. So if you know someone that can drop some knowledge, might even be you if you're listening to it, give me a heads up. We want to schedule out some additional interviews in the upcoming future. David, you may even be able to key us in on some of the influencers that you have. I know you've got a great podcast, but let me go ahead and introduce David, and we are going to dive into our interview for today. So David Cristello is the founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow, a leading workflow tool built for ambitious accounting firms owners just like you who want to increase profitability, work-life balance, and exceptional client service. Jetpack Workflow has a team of 19, my God, that's incredible, that serves thousands of accountants in 18 plus countries. David is also the host of Growing Your Firm podcast, and I can't even believe this, but it has over 400,000 downloads, and he is also the co-author of the best-selling book, Double Your Accounting Firm. So David, welcome to the Proactive Accountants community, and do you have anything you'd like to say to kind of kick things off here?
No, I'm really excited that you've been able to put together such a strong community. I know it's not a simple thing to do, and so thank you for inviting me on to the Wednesday Wisdoms. I love the community, love your energy, just excited to be here.
Thanks. I'm really happy to have you. And, I also want to just say, I've listened to a number of your podcasts. You are an excellent content creator yourself. And for anyone who's listening to this, David puts together one heck of a podcast. He interviews some of the brightest minds in the accounting industry. And if you're not already part of what I like to refer to as Podcast U, right? Like the University of Podcasting, where you can tap into all this incredible information and knowledge for free, similar to what you get to experience inside of this group, please make use of that. So just on that topic, David, any recent people that you kind of comes to mind when you think of growing your firm that kind of had a really great episode that maybe would be a good starting point for our audience?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's so many. There's a couple tactical and there's a couple strategic that come to mind. So there's a tactical one we did recently with Susan, and I'm blanking on her last name. Susan, I'm so sorry if you're listening to this. And she came on and she had this really incredible win. And so the point of the podcast is try to put a spotlight on people that are doing something amazing in the space and getting results that are exceptional. And we like to bring them on and try to deconstruct what they're doing. And so Susan came on and she told us this win. She goes, well, year over year, we've been able to complete almost twice as many tax returns, and we downsized the team. And right, that's kind of like everyone's like, how do you do that? That's insane. What are you doing? Now, full disclosure, Susan happens to be a Jetpack Workflow customer, but her methodology, we're always trying to look for wins in our own community because we're seeing a lot of data, in our space. But you can apply this methodology to any kind of system you're using. And so she did two critical tweaks to her workflow that allowed her to get this. Because I also said, well, okay, did twice as many, you had one less team member. Did you just work 150 hours a week, between the two of you? No, the workload is about the same. So they did two things. The first thing is they used a concept called they only started when they were ready. Meaning, so often when you're doing things like tax returns, although it could apply to any piece of work that you take on, what happens is you get some of the work in, you want to deliver the experience to the client, so you start working on it. Then you realize that you're missing something, so you stop, you go back to the client doesn't get to you in a timely manner. 1 to 2 to 3 weeks passes, they finally get you the materials, you go back to that piece of work, and you have to spend so much time catching up to all the context. And that's assuming you have things like notes and about what you were doing.
Right.
Most commonly, you're not writing notes on what you're doing, so you have to do more catch up to figure out what's going on. So they had a new rule where they would put in a simple checklist. What are all the things that are required to begin this? Because once we start working on this, we don't want to stop. And, Susan, even though she's a very, human, empathetic person, she thought of it as an assembly line, right? As soon as we start working on it, we don't want to stop that project getting done, that job getting done. So they had that little checklist, and then she was the checklist master, and then she handed it off to her partner to actually run through the return and complete it. And that simple tweak was game changing for them. And then the second thing they did that I really, really loved was, and I don't know if we could do hand raises or if people could post into Facebook. I'll ask you a question. But yeah, Tyler, this is so fun. I haven't done Facebook Live, so this is great. I get to do this motion a lot. Who here has problems getting clients to respond to you? Right? Have you ever called a client and they don't pick up email, right? Just put me down below. Let's break Facebook for Tyler right now. And Susan had that same problem, right? And so they were always chasing down clients. And guess what? When you're chasing down clients, that's not billable time. It's admin time. And depending on your team size, that admin time typically falls on the owner, the leader, the partner, right? Which arguably they shouldn't be doing it all, but most time they are. It's not billable. It's not productive. It's not adding value to the relationship. So what Susan did is they did a year-end survey, and they said something like this. I'm going to paraphrase it slightly. They said, in order to better serve you in the upcoming year, we are going to give you an option of how you want to be communicated with. Now, bear in mind, whatever option you pick, we do expect you to get back to us within 1 business day. So we're more than happy to give you the option to deliver a better service. But in order for us to deliver the product we need to deliver to you to be a satisfied customer, we need you to commit to 1 day turnaround, something like that. Okay. So as they said, you get phone calls, you get an email, or you get a text message. Which way do you prefer to be communicated with? They ask the clients. Now, somebody listening might say, oh, I don't want to do texting. Oh, that's crazy. I don't want to do it. Okay, don't offer that, right? You get to create this little universe called your firm. If you hate texting, don't add it, right? If you want to include Slack messages or Facebook messages, include that. If you want to include letters, include that. It's totally up to you. So that was their 3. And then what they did is they got all the responses back, and they tagged the communication preference inside a Jetpack workflow. Again, if you're using a spreadsheet, that's just a new cell inside the spreadsheet. Oh, this person needs text messages. So when you're asking a clarification question, or you're giving a status update, or you're asking, you know the preferred method. So that dramatically cut down on the client chase, because the client, when they gave their answer, they also had this agreement, like, I will respond to you if you're going to give me text messaging, right? Or phone calls or emails. So between those 2 things, they were able to achieve a dramatically higher output. And so Susan's interview was a lot of fun just because it was so nitty gritty, in the weeds, exactly what you were doing. That one was a lot of fun. We just did a recent interview. Now that's pure practitioner. What are you doing in the trenches every day? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'll do interviews like the one we just did with Lee from Hinge Marketing. And they did a survey on what a typical firm spends on marketing against their growth rate. And so they have this great PDF, this great survey. So we brought Lee on. Very cool. Let's talk through the results, and then owners could self-assess where they kind of fit, and maybe their growth ambitions doesn't align with their marketing budget, which you probably see all the time, Tyler, right? It's just
all the time.
So that was amazing. And it falls everywhere in between. We had Warren Wilson come on. He's also a Jetpack customer, and he's buying firms. So he's in a stage where he buys about 1 firm per quarter.
Wow.
And
that's aggressive.
Yes, very, right. And it's not for amateurs, right? You're going to be spending money, and it's a lot, and there's a lot of change management. And he's gone through this process a handful of times. And so we talked about, what do you do to enable change in a firm? What do you look for in an acquisition target? So I know for a lot of our listeners, like maybe in the next 5 years or 10 years, what I found, by the way, Tyler, maybe it's the same with your community. A lot of people don't have a plan to sell, but they always say, but if somebody made an offer, we'll see. So like the best thing you can do in the meantime is just build the firm of your dreams that gives you a great distribution, which then makes it a great acquisition target. So Warren Wilson talked about, in the early days, they used to try to buy really underperforming firms because there's so much margin they could improve. But then they found out that the systems were so bad and the culture was so bad that the effort to get them improved was just a pure nightmare. So then they went after kind of mid to pretty good performing firms, and they gave them an extra 5 to 10% profit boost. And we talked about that. And one of the tactics he mentioned was, and this shows you his mindset, was every month. He used to do that when he was running a firm, but now the firm leaders for these specific units do this. Every month he'll look at when was work done, when was it due, and anytime a job, we call it a job in our system, other tools might call it projects, engagements, whatever. But if something was completed after the deadline, he would open up that job, and he had a rule that every communication for that job had to be facilitated and processed through Jetpack. We have a little collaboration feature.
Very
and
cool.
What he would do is he would do a bottleneck analysis, and he would look at the conversations, and he would say, oh, Chuck was asking Susan where the client's second address was. And then Susan had to go ask a partner where it was. And so in Orrin's mind, he's like, I had 3 people who are supposed to be delivering an amazing client experience stop working and chase after something that should have just been in the system the whole time. So what he would do is he would go in and he would update the client profile with the second address, let the team know, you never need to ask this question again. Go to here's the source of record, and he would point to that. So he was doing bottleneck analysis every month to drive up margins. And so obviously that was a really fun interview. There's a ton. I can go on and on there, but those are 3.
I feel like we should just close down Wednesday Wisdom after that, because my goodness, that was just an unbelievable amount of knowledge and practical experience and so many different things to pull on. And again, I just want to kind of harken back to where this is all originating from. And this is part of Podcast U. This is a part of being a part of David's world and understanding that, yes, there's tactics, but there's also the strategies that are informing what those tactics should be. So many important things that we can pull from that, understanding that ultimately don't start the work until you're ready to start the work. I love that. I think the start and go mentality has just kind of crippled what could typically be a very profitable client into maybe a borderline client, or maybe even what would be considered a problem client. But I always think that the only reason people would kind of have that impression of, oh, this is a problem client, it always comes back to mismanaged expectations and the idea that, hey, what is your preferred communication method? Really pegging them to that, making it almost into some type of a contract, tying it back to the value of the service that they're investing in. I mean, that was just spot on so many different ways. And obviously we can talk a heck of a lot more about some of the other things David shared with us, but I really just wanted to kind of pull that out and say, hey, this is a great actionable piece of information that you can take and deploy immediately, not in a couple of weeks. This isn't theory. This is something that's working really well for somebody right now. And if you're listening to this, and you should be, well, then obviously take that and implement that as soon as possible. That is not something that's difficult to do. Let's kind of change gears a little bit here, David.
So, sorry, Tyler, before we change gears,
please.
One final thing, because it just came to mind, and there's a speaker. I follow him adamantly. I know other people have. Some people love him, some people hate him, whatever. So Jim Rohn has this wonderful saying, and Jim Rohn is a great personal development speaker. He's actually a mentor to Tony Robbins back in the day when he was getting started. And he said, finish a day before you start a day. Meaning, have a to-do list, have a plan for the day, and then work the plan. And for a lot of firm owners, I talked to 3 customers yesterday. I hear this a lot, where it's just like struggling to work on your firm instead of just in your firm, right? And I think, and it's always going to be a struggle, and it's always difficult. I don't want to undermine the fact that when you're playing both roles, it's really, really challenging. But if you never plan to work on your firm, you're just never going to work on your firm. So anyways.
Yeah. I love that. And one of the things that I recommend, and I actually, I stole this idea from a client, because, we have email automation and it goes out and it hit him on a Wednesday. It actually hit him like 2 or 3 Wednesdays in a row. It just kind of worked out that way. And email would come back and it would essentially just say, hey, I appreciate this, but I use Wednesdays to work on my business instead of in it. And I'll get back to you within 24 hours. And I encourage you to do the same and make sure that you can dedicate a day a week to work on your business instead of in it. And I appreciate also this from a daily point of view rather than a dedicated day per week. But I think that this speaks to a larger point that I love to talk to my audience about, which is you are the master of your time. The whole reason we became entrepreneurs is because we essentially said either I can do that better or I want to win back my time. And what ends up happening is we end up kind of, to your point, which is like we end up finding ourselves like waking up at the end of the day, like, what did I just work 10 to 12 hours in my business? What did I even accomplish? I don't even know what I did today. And it feels like you don't make progress because you're not structuring and understanding the way things go, just kind of bringing it back to that Jim Rohn quote, which is like, you got to finish the day by understanding kind of where you're starting with it, right?
Yeah. And I saw this amazing structure. So you'll use the word steal. I'll call it swipe.
Borrow.
Although borrow. Yeah. I mean, because everything's borrowed, right? I mean, what's really an
True.
original idea? But if you're struggling, if you're doing that 12-hour a day and you're like, okay, I just don't feel like I can get ahead. There's this amazing structure where, you can divide in a very simplistic fashion, you have 4 buckets of output, we'll call it. You have bucket number 1 is admin work. So $10 to $12 to $15 an hour work. And that's running to the post office, mailing stuff, booking travel, what have you, right? I think we can all fill up, managing calendars, things like that. And then the bucket number 2 is kind of the practitioner bucket. So $100 an hour work. So, in the world of marketing, this is like writing your sales letters, you're doing your videos. In the world of accounting, it's like doing some tax work, doing client services, right? The third bucket is kind of a operational bucket. So this is, team management. This is building systems and processes. This is like $500 an hour work because you're trying to delegate and elevate the rest of your ecosystem. And then the final bucket is strategic, $1,000 an hour. So this is where you're trying to figure out what's the right market positioning for your firm. This is where you're thinking about new services, pricing adjustments, partnerships, or very strategic partnerships.
Yep.
I was talking with a gentleman that went all in on, I want to say it was graphic design. And so he got a partnership with some large firm and he went to the conference, right? Very strategic decision. He probably spent 5 hours on that or 10 hours on that or 20 hours on that. He's probably going to make $100,000. So great use of time. So the point is that admin and practitioner bucket, that work is working in your firm. The operational and strategy is working on your firm. And so if you are trying to adjust the ratio of that, the first thing you need to do is just document your typical week.
Right.
And you'll be like, oh, admin practitioner. And so if you're totally maxed out on admin practitioner, well, the first step is, how do I either get software to automate some of the admin work or hire somebody to do some of the admin work? And then you replace that time with the operational work of system development. But if you're stuck, I found that structure that, to be very quantifiable and fairly objective on where your issues are with working in versus on. So that's just another big, and by the way, I've done a handful of interviews, Tyler, and I swear like the 5 things I just mentioned didn't even come up on the other interview. So if people like this kind of content, please hit up Tyler or put into the comments below. I get really excited about this stuff, but I'm kind of a weirdo. So if everyone's enjoying it, type below. I'd be very curious to hear what the comments are.
Yeah, exactly. We are we're on the same wavelength, as I like to say, when we kind of start to get into what I think is almost a deeper layer of practice management, business principles in general. And I really like the way you kind of phrase these buckets. And I almost kind of was thinking about how I like to orchestrate my days. And I feel like the way I almost kind of do them is I just, without having that knowledge of kind of the way you put it, is I almost work backwards from the buckets, right? Like I start my mornings with like a really just like an open like whiteboard. I say like, where are we going? Like, what is the destination? And like, what are the most efficient ways that we can figure out to get there? JV partners, what is the next big service offering that we're looking to do? How do we get to the next level, right? I start essentially every day like that. And then it can sometimes be a little too much because you start to go in all these different directions, but you know what I mean? It's like you have to make sure that you start your day with an understanding of kind of what your focus should be. And then from there, it's like, well, how do we systemize what we're trying to get to? And the principle that I love to use is the DAD principle. And you may be familiar with this, but
I'm not, ironically. I was a new dad. It's ironic, but I'm not familiar with whatever this principle is.
Well, congratulations, but it'll essentially fit into what your new lifestyle will quickly become. But essentially, it is can you delegate it? Okay, can you, again, if that's in the admin task, how do you hand that football off as quickly as possible to make sure that it gets done and reaches its designated target? If you can't delegate it, can you automate it? And more precisely, I think it's actually the other way around. If you can't automate it, can you delegate it, right? I mean, automation should come first. It's the cheapest, it's the easiest. I mean, we look at the way the economy is really shifting. It's because of the power of automation. It's because of the software tools like Jetpack Workflow, like ClickFunnels, that are essentially being able to do what a room full of bookkeepers or a room full of telemarketers would have done 2 decades ago, right? The idea is how do we get that additional layer of efficiency through the use of software? And then the final one is, can you delete it, right? Is this task even necessary? Like, if it shouldn't be delegated, if it shouldn't be automated, do you even need to be doing it? So that's the dad principle. And you can even reverse it. Like, can I delete it? Can I automate it? Can I delegate it? So again, it's just sort of a hierarchy of how to best deal with and tackle the things that, quite frankly, you probably shouldn't be doing with your time. But again, I think that's a great point. And let's maybe, just kind of shift gears a little bit here now. And again, just David's got an incredible podcast, but I feel ashamed that I haven't read your book. I feel like I've read almost all the major accounting books, and I don't know how I haven't read your book. And ironically, I have, well, it's a secret bonus when people sign up for the 100K challenge, but we essentially do book reviews. Like every Monday, we break down chapters of books, and maybe just do a very quick synopsis of your book and kind of what the major takeaways are from somebody who would invest their time in reading it.
Yeah, the book, the concept behind the book was we had done probably 100 interviews on the podcast, and we had worked with at least hundreds of firms at that point. And, we didn't need to be rocket scientists to understand that there are certain patterns, certain principles, certain methods the top firm owners were using to produce outsized results. And so the premise behind the book is myself and Joe Cassandra, who was the editor and author of a lot of the blog posts in the early days, took the categories of the interviews and we said, okay, there's some that clearly focus on team management, some on pricing, some on workflow, some on M&A, some on sales, some on marketing. And so what we did is we divided the book up into those chapters. And we looked at the interviews and we said, what are the Ron Bakers of the world, saying when they say value pricing? And so
Right.
If you want a nice introduction into what I think are some of the most impactful concepts that the accounting industry has been talking about for the last 5, 6, 7 years, probably even longer, that's what the book is for. And it just gives you some great, here's some introductory action items you can take on. If you want to dive deeper into the interviews, we list them at the end of the chapter, and some action items and some questions you can take on. And I will say that, if somebody's listening right now and, you want a digital copy, you want a free digital copy, I have a little offer. I was going to say it at the end, but my goodness, it's going to happen right now. Look, if you check out Jetpack Workflow, if you start a free trial, so we have a 2-week free trial, you can go in, click it around, check it out, whatever. You could start a free trial, take a look at it, say, nope, not for me. I'll still give you these gifts anyways, just for, letting us try to, serve your firm in that way. I'll give you a free copy of the digital books, 200 pages. It took us more than 200 hours to put this thing together. I'll just send you a copy of it. I'll also give you 32 spreadsheet templates. So maybe you're like, the software, maybe it's not the right time for you. I do think you should still get, some stuff standardized in your firm. So we have 32 service items that are standardized in templates. So as soon as you start a free trial, so jetpackworkflow.com, there's a giant free trial button. If you go to jetpackworkflow.com/free trial, probably take you there as well. And then just shoot me a note. Hey, just signed up, heard you on Tyler's interview. I'll send you the book. I'll send you the 32 templates. And then my MO is I'll probably send you other free stuff that come to mind between now and then, because I'll just start loading them all into the email, right?
Beautiful. So we're gonna cover that offer again at the end, but I want to kind of just pull one thing from what you said that I think a lot of people struggle with, and it's so simple. It's in front of a lot of people, but they don't really see it. And it's the value of being able to repurpose content that you've already created. Like David understood that he already had the value through these interviews to take them and repurpose them into another valuable medium that is different than, not everybody's listening to podcasts, but a lot of people like to read books. Not everybody likes to read books, but a lot of people like to watch Facebook Lives. And the kind of reason I bring this up is I think content generation and creation inside of the accounting space, even inside the software space, which I know a lot of people struggle with, and it can be a huge driver of traffic, a huge creator of what I like to call the reciprocation factor. It's like, oh man, I got all this great value from either the podcast or the book or the Facebook group, and well, maybe I should investigate Jetpack workflow, the 100K challenge, ClickFunnels, whatever it is that's kind of at the end of that content line. I think is invaluable, and I think one of the crying shames of accountants is they feel that content creation can be exceptionally difficult. And I don't disagree that it's difficult to start, but I think once you kind of have a system, a methodology that you really like, did you start first with your podcast? Was that kind of your first hub of generating content for you, David?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the way, not to get too far into our backstory, but we've always been of the mindset to try and put a spotlight on things that are working and create tools and content around that. And so, yeah, day one, it's let's interview thought leaders in the space and practitioners and highlight what they're doing and write up blog posts. I mean, it's a great value add to interview somebody and give them a 1,500 word write up.
True.
And now we mail it out to tens of thousands of email subscribers. So that's always been our MO. And to your point, the people that listen to the podcast, there is obviously unique content in the book, but we find that the people that love the podcast are typically the ones that also love the book, because what happens is you don't listen to 100 episodes back to back to back to back to back.
Very true.
You listen to them sporadically, and maybe you catch 45 of them. You're not catching 100 typically. But what we're going to do is we're going to try and condense it down as much as we can. So it's just a digestible, take you, call it 100 hours to listen to 100 interviews. And then the listener has to do the work of, categorizing it, pulling out the action items and listening them out. So we're asking a lot of the listener if they wanted to package it up in that way. So we do it and say, look, you can read the book in call it 2 to 3 hours. And you don't have to spend the 150 hours or 200 hours that it took us to do it. So, and for something like $10, right? It's not a money maker for us by any stretch of the imagination. We're not making, we get tens of dollars a month, right? Probably from the book, but it's for us, it's the right thing to do. We had all this content and we were really passionate about getting as much into the space as we could. And your point about content, spot on. An early interview we did with Ed Mendlowitz, who was a partner at Witham Smith and, oh gosh, they're going to kill me. I can't remember the third name, but very large firm, very successful firm in New Jersey. And clients would ask him questions all the time and he would answer them. And then he would turn on the recorder on his phone and then say, hey, I was just, this client just asked me this. Here's what I told him. Bah, 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 bah. He would send it off to rev.com, rev.com.
Yep.
They would transcribe it.
Free Tool Friday on that.
Free Tool Friday. There you go. And that's how he created his early content. He was just always mindful. Hey, when a client asks me a question, I bet I have another 10 clients that have the same question. So I'm going to record it and send it over. So there's a lot of simple ways to get started.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And maybe let's kind of just swing this back to Jetpack. And I want to also just have a small marketing centric kind of talk on it, which is, have you seen any cool ways in which your clients, either when they first adopted it, after they've maybe kind of gotten through the implementation period, maybe after they started to master the software a little bit for their particular needs, have you found any kind of interesting stories or interesting experiences of your clients communicating to their clients about the changes that they're going through and sort of maybe kind of how that's come back to them in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I would say from a marketing standpoint, I mean, the thing about Jetpack workflow, we talk about this SAT method, standardize something, automate it, and then track it. If referrals are meaningful to your firm, which they typically are for most firm owners, and we would argue that you should create a system around it. I'm not saying it's a magic light bulb, but you should create a system around it. And so how that appears in Jetpack workflow is, take your, so we have something in the system called templates. A template is a standardized way of doing anything in your firm. So let's just take a really common example, monthly bookkeeping. If you're doing this every month, you can create a standardized task, or maybe it's every quarter, or maybe it's every year, it's totally up to your firm, to do a client satisfaction survey. And, there's a lot of these tools out there that if they give you a favorable score, it will ask them for a referral. Or maybe it's not even automated. Maybe you want to have more touch points. So you could say, hey, we just closed out your yearly tax return. We'd love to just, here's a link to our client satisfaction survey. It's really just 3 questions. It would mean the world to us if you answer them. Thanks so much. And, the clients that are giving you high scores, maybe you get them on the phone call and say, hey, Bill, thank you so much for completing the survey. We really enjoy working with you. I just wanted to let you know that if you, have colleagues, have fellow business owners that are struggling to get clarity on their tax returns, like, you first had when we started working together, not only would I give them a free consultation, I'll give them X, Y, and Z for just being a referral that came from you. And by the way, as a firm owner, you can afford that because you bake that into your cost of acquisition, which I'm sure if you're following Tyler, that's at least on your radar in some way, because I know that's how you think. So if it's asking for a referral, or put it, we've had some people that say when you're done onboarding a client, ask for a referral. That's the right time, right? So that's right. You put it into the system, right? If there's a certain way you run consultations, create a checklist for it, create a template for it, right? Just for yourself. Maybe this isn't something you share with your team or share with your clients, but know that you follow a specific process to go through. If you're writing marketing material, again, it's a template, it's a checklist, right? What we're trying to do with Jetpack Workflow is try to download as many things outside of your brain, the firm owner's brain, and put them into a place that, hey, other people can see it. Because we believe that when other people can see it, they won't have to go to you, right? And that helps free up your time, and it empowers them to do the right thing. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, Tyler, but that's the referral example.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. Not quite what I was going for, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. But okay. I would like to maybe just pull one thing out of that, which I think is just, like you said, like, hey, systems, we're not having any light bulbs go off. I totally get that. But I also think that, a lot of us operate our business as if we were, running, not cave paintings, but essentially doing oratory storytelling, right? Like, in order for us to pass the information along to the next person, you have to talk to this person. And then, when this person's getting ready to leave their job, well, they're the only person who knows how to do that job. So they're going to pass along a portion of how to do that job to the next person who gets the job. And all of a sudden, it's like they don't really know how to do it. It's not as efficiently as it could be done. And the simplest answer to this is yes, you have to document your procedures, your processes, and your checklists. And even if there's things that are of a more personal nature, like the way you want to run your sales calls, the things you don't want to forget, it's awesome to know that's something that can be done potentially within inside Jetpack. I didn't understand that correctly, right? You could have a personal checklist in there. Is that right? That's awesome.
You don't have to share it with everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. So let me, I want to kind of just explain my origin story with David. I meant to start the call with this, but, I think just in being respectful of David's time here, I know we're going to be getting close to about an hour here, and I want to potentially have an opportunity to do just a tiny demo so that people can get a little bit of an understanding of kind of what they can expect with Jetpack. If we have time, of course, not sure if that's on the cards, but essentially, a lot of you know that I ran my own accounting firm. I successfully added 6 figures to it 2 years in a row before selling it. But what a lot of you don't know is that there was a crisis that occurred before I discovered ClickFunnels. And essentially what that crisis involved was I was using a tool called Infusionsoft. It's a CRM platform. I like to refer to it as a jack of all trades, master of none. And I had invested a lot of money to turn Infusionsoft into both my client management system as well as my marketing system, okay? And I'm here to tell you I made like the most expensive mistake of my life. I literally spent like $30,000 to try and turn this tool into something it ultimately was not. And I remember the day very clearly when my staff revolted. They essentially said, "Hey, like this tool is not doing what it needs to do to track what it needs to do to notify the clients when they need to get notified." And I was like, "Man, I just got to train you guys better." And it was like, "No, like you do not need to do that. You've already tried to train us like 5 times. It doesn't work." And I was like, "Okay, like maybe I need to reevaluate my decisions here." And then we ended up losing a very large client because of how poorly we had something fall through the cracks. And I think that's one of the major taglines for Jetpack, which is we don't let client work essentially fall through the cracks, or some, I'm obviously paraphrasing, but the idea is like, I was like, I need to solve the fulfillment problem, and Infusionsoft wasn't doing enough to generate new leads. And so I said, okay, let me find the fulfillment solution. Plugged in Jetpack, essentially, like the guy who was responsible for processing our work, he literally was like, "Tyler, thank you." Like he was like, I've never seen, accountants and emotions, sometimes it's not like really apparent except when something's really wrong or really right. Something was really wrong and he let me know, and then something was really right and he let me know. And like the difference between the two was like night and day. And I was just like, all right, I guess that was the right decision. And sure enough, like our profit margins got better, the turnaround for our work got better, like everything got better as it relates to fulfilling work. So a personal testimonial to just like thank David for all the like the tears and the nights and like the not spending time with your family to build this tool. Like I know what it takes to do something like this of this magnitude. So from me to you, just thank you very much. And of course, the follow-up from that is then for the client acquisition, I found ClickFunnels. Now I basically give you everything you need to be able to do what I did, which is add 6 figures to your firm through the 100K challenge. So again, thank you, David. And my follow-up question from that is, of course, if I've sold my firm, I know things have gotten better over the last few years. And if you've got a couple minutes, I'd love to just keep myself apprised to what's going on with Jetpack so I can continue to educate people about why this is an excellent potential solution for their needs. So do you have a few minutes to show us what's new?
Yeah, I got 5, 6, 7 minutes. That's really cool. I obviously knew that you were a customer of Jetpack Workflow. I didn't know to the extent all of the backstory leading into that. So I really appreciate the kind words.
Course,
certainly share that with the company. I mean, that's really a motivating factor for us as a true north. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, happy to walk through, the latest, greatest inside of Jetpack Workflow. I can, probably at a high level talk about maybe some of the things we're exploring. I can't tell you what specific features are coming out next or what the due date or deadline is for those, but
that's cool.
we can dig in and start taking a look at it. And I can't see questions here on the screen. I will say that, 5 minutes is a nice snapshot. I'm sure more questions will come up. The best way to battle test this thing is to start a trial. You get all the features. You get to talk with one of our product specialists, or we have an intercom support chat bubble in the bottom right. We have tons of knowledge-based videos. We do, goodness, I think about 4 webinars a week just for new users. But yeah, happy to show you exactly what's going on inside of the system. So let me know if this is going to work, Tyler, or if I'm going to break the system. So I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen.
Let's see if it works.
Did it work?
It looks good to me.
Cool. All right. So this is where I like to start. Everybody kind of has their personal preference. Where do they like to start in Jetpack Workflow? This is what we call the Jobs tab. And the beautiful thing about the Jobs tab, and we'll probably walk through, is the way we're going to do this 5-minute snapshot, is I'm going to show you kind of the, excuse me, central command center, which is the Jobs tab. This is the place where all of your recurring deadlines and due dates are managed inside of a single screen. It's your view of the forest to try and identify what's going well and what's not going as well. Maybe you need to follow up with. So we're going to walk through the Jobs tab. We're going to do a look at what a template is, because it's so fundamental to scaling your firm. So we're going to talk about a template and the feature that we have to make it really easy just to roll it out to a bunch of clients. And then time permitting, we're just going to do a quick overview of the dashboard, which I always say it's like the 90-second snapshot to, if things are falling through the cracks or not. So having said that, I just wanted to walk through the jobs tab. And this is really what it looks like after you have the account set up. So full disclosure, obviously, if you set up a free trial and you want to see what a fully fleshed out account looks like, this is where the one-on-one walkthrough is perfect, because then our demo accounts look like this. So what you're going to see on this screen, and it should be intuitive for most people, right? We've designed it to feel like a super powered spreadsheet of sorts. You're going to see the client. You're going to see the job name, which, as I mentioned earlier, other systems might say engagement. And the job can be a one-off item. It could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, every 6 weeks, every year, every other year, doesn't matter. So this is the name of it, monthly cash flow call. How many tasks are inside of that job? So 3, so 0 out of 3 complete. When is it due? What's the status of it? So pending just means in our system it hasn't been started at all. And who's responsible for it? So in this case, James. Now you will see some pretty cool things just on the screen right now. So, this row right here is your row of filters. So I have a filter set up right now that says everything due this month. If I wanted to change it, things with no due date, for example, which is almost kind of like a sin in my book. You should at least have a due date. But we put this filter in here so you can catch the ones, the bad actors that don't have a due date, right? Because what's that saying, which is like task without a due date is just like a dream, like it doesn't exist. Hey, it'll get done whenever, right? So you can filter anything here, and you can do a custom range. You can filter by team member, so you want to see everything due this month that is assigned to James. We could pull that up. And if I want to see everything due this month that's been assigned to James that is, I don't know, waiting on a client, right? So we have custom labels, right? You get to get even more nuance. And one of the most popular labels inside of the system is waiting on client. For all the reasons I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, sometimes we need things from clients and they don't get us those things back in a timely manner. And so if I want to say, hey, James, and maybe I do this every week with him or every other week, so much of the system could be helping you put in a management cadence where you're touching base with your team member and you say, hey, James, I just want to pull up everything that's due this month that's waiting on a client, and say, okay, I see this monthly cash flow call. It's with Pen Inc. Where are we at with that? Have you tried calling them? Have you tried emailing them? Do you need me to step in? How many voicemails have you left? Would it make sense for me to touch base with them? What do you need from me? How can I best support you, right? And so if I open this up, this is what we call the jobs tab. And if James is making a call with the client, they can come into here and James could say, called client, left voicemail. And by the way, if you have a team, you want your team in any tool to leave notes, right? This is like part of owner sanity is having a trail of what's going on.
Yes.
And so you can open it up and, or maybe James is traveling or work remote. Maybe it's not a one-on-one. I can also message him right in the system, say, hey, James, can you follow up with this client ASAP? Maybe I just got off the phone with them. They're on vacation. So I can just shoot James a message and say, hey, I need you to call them right away. Depending on the information you put in the system, you could see the client's phone number, email, address. There's all kinds of stuff you can put to a client page. See that information right here. We can see that there's 2 hours budgeted to complete this work. We like a 3-day turnaround time. Let me just go ahead and actually distribute time for this one so it's all blocked out. And what James is going to do is come into here and complete the standardized set of steps that have been laid out to complete this engagement. So he'll come in, check off the work. As he's checking off work, the budgeted time is decreasing, right? So even if you're a firm that doesn't use a timer, we still feel that budgeted time is a really nice sanity check to understand capacity. And if you want a quasi timesheet, we have a report. You can just download what's everybody completed today and look against the budgeted time. And you can say, oh, they did 4 hours of budgeted work today. So we're big fans of budgeted time. And, James can come in here and check it off. If the client gets back to him, gets the message, great, remove this label, hit the back button, and you're back to the next view. Now, the cool thing is when I hit the back button, right, so it's loading everything due this month, waiting on client for James, I now see, hey, James, congratulations, nothing's waiting on client. But maybe I'm worried about all the things that are waiting on a client. So my final sanity check is what else is waiting on a client. So I'm going to remove those filters. I see a tax return, probably shoot a note to Bill. Hey, follow up with this client. We're waiting on them. So in this single view, you apply any of these filters. You can sort multiple items inside the screen. I think we're the only application where you can do a multiple sort option. And then finally, if you don't like filtering, if you don't like sorting, you love searching and it's like search or bust, right? You can search right here. So if I want to bring up, monthly reporting work, right? It categorizes the work that you've created.
Very
If I
cool.
want to pull up everything for Pam's Bakery, I can pull up this file right here. Every view that you create in this world, you can bookmark it. Right. So if you have your dream 3 to 5 views as a manager, as a firm owner that you want to see every week, such as show me everything overdue, sorted by due date, or show me everything due this month that's waiting on a client, you can bookmark those reports and just, have a folder and open them up. So the jobs tab, it's my personal favorite tab. We talked about team collaboration, which you saw in the app messaging. We talked about budgeted times, which is kind of like a near and dear to my heart. We talked about labels. Lot of amazing features in this one view. This is where the work gets done. This is our version of opening up the fridge on, like, when you do those home tours, everyone's like, the fridge. This is the fridge, right? This is where you get fed. So that's the jobs tab. The final thing I want to talk about, or actually we might have time for the dashboard, is this is what a template looks like. Inside of the tool, when you start a free trial, we give you 50 template examples you can pull from.
Very cool.
Right, in the workflow library. So this is why it's a no-brainer to start a free trial, because my goodness, just grab some free templates, at the end of the day if you need to. Workflow library, you open it up, you create your standardized set of steps, right? So this is how you complete, monthly CFO review. You add the tasks into here. If you need to add descriptions, subtasks, notes, if you want to embed videos into here, you can.
Ooh.
If you want to create dependencies, right? So Bob needs to hand this off to Frank, or Frank can't work on this until Bob is done. You can do dependencies.
Nice.
You can put billing model in there if you want. You create your template. And the feature I love is you create the template. Great. Now I need to sign this out to, I don't know, like all of my business clients or some of my business clients. You come into here and you click create. And you can say, this job is successfully created for 10 clients. It can be found on the jobs list. What you just saw, it happened so fast that this is why I want to break it down. We took a template, right? It's called monthly CFO review. If I open up the jobs list, what just happened is that's been indexed in our system. It's created 10 active jobs for those 10 clients. And the recurrence is set up. So it happens every month. The reason we got started in Jetpack Workflow is because when we were looking at other tools, because we were trying to convince firm owners to just use Asana or Trello or Basecamp or whatever, the big difference is they're not client-centric systems. And this is a clear benefit of Jetpack Workflow is we design it as a client-centric work management system. So the things we just created, here they are. Boom, 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 boom. They reoccur each and every month. Like clockwork, you're never going to miss that again. You can come into here, and I'm just checking off the job. You can check off the task if you want as well. It's going to go ahead and create the next one, and it's standardized. The steps are going to stay the same. Handoffs are going to stay the same. The budgeted time is going to stay the same. So the final thing I'll mention, and I do have to jump off in like 1 minute. Here's the dashboard. Here's your 60-second snapshot, right? What's coming up today, this week, next week. Here's everything in progress. Here's what's waiting on e-file, missing information, everything that you need to take a look at across your firm, inside of this dashboard. So Tyler, that is my 7-minute overview of Jetpack. Again, I think the best way to really determine if it's the right fit, we're biased, right? But we always feel like today's the best time to build better systems because 3 months from now, it's only going to be more painful. But, wherever you're at in your journey of workflow, start the free trial, get the free resources, check out the templates. If not the right time, I won't be offended, right? But anyways, it's a free resource for everybody.
Look, first of all, thank you so much for being willing to do this interview. I mean, not only was the software just like, I remember it being like really cool, but honestly, it's beautiful. And I can already see the functionality, how quick it moves. Like it has already gone like light years from where it was before. And it was already like awesome a couple of years ago. So I can only imagine what the future looks like for Jetpack as well. So let me just say again, thank you so much for David. I hope everybody takes David up on his offer. I mean, not only are you going to get an incredible resource, you're going to get templates that you can take a look at. And to be honest, I think if you're willing to go through with a trial and check out the demo, I think you're going to find a solution that is going to be maybe something that has been missing in your firm for quite some time, and you'll wonder how you live without it once it's fully implemented. So again, David, I want to say thank you so much. This was a ton of fun. And I can't wait to see you in some other venues, some other opportunities. I know we're going to keep bumping into each other. So again, congratulations on the success. Congratulations on being a new father. And again, thank you so much for being willing to do this interview.
Thanks for having me. If anybody reaches out, has any questions, my email is david@jetpackworkflow.com. Obviously, the website's jetpackworkflow.com.
Beautiful. Thank you again so much. Any additional comments, questions, drop them down below. And David, we'll talk to you in the near future.
All right. Thanks so much.